much. You guys will have half an hour.
Thanks.
So bring in the meeting to attention here. About half an hour presentation. You'll have 15 minutes for questions. And there's do you have any questions for me at this point? It's kind of we run it, easy and interactive, so I'm at it.
All right, great. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Can you hear me okay? I don't think
I
we
would
need...
introduce everybody here if you want, so you know who you're talking to. Do you want to?
Actually, isn't this the same committee we had in the previous meeting?
I wasn't here.
Okay, maybe, go ahead then.
Introduce yourself, guys.
I'm Jared Francis. I'm the city engineer.
Tanja McCoy, Development Services.
Walker Dawson, Stormwater Utility Manager.
Keith Capizzi, Mayor of Cocoa Beach.
Patricia Draycott, CFO.
Martha Horak, and I'm Deputy City Clerk. Pam Kimpton, Finance.
Good morning. Okay, thank you very much. So my name is Ron Schultz. I'm the principal of Edgewater Resources. We've got locations in Florida, Michigan, and Wisconsin. So with me today are three of my engineers, and I think a couple of your questions in the RFP were directed at who's going to work on this project and how much time are they going to give us. This is the team that will work on your project. So I'm going to lead the team. I'm in charge of all of our marina projects, not only in Florida but elsewhere. Eric Schultz.
Yep, Eric Schultz. I'm Ron's right hand. I'll be managing the project and making sure that we've got all the staff committed to the project and oversee schedule, budget, things like that. Also have a lot of experience with submerged land leases and grants. So when we get to the point of looking at identifying grants, I'll be handling that as well.
I'm Jose Lecal, coastal engineer, master's from the University of Florida, born and raised Florida native and avid flats fisherman. I handle all the existing conditions, bathymetric surveys, natural resource surveys, for all of the technical numerical modeling for ocean processes, waves, winds, currents, tides. So if there's any questions on that, I'm your man. And I also handle all the permitting, making sure that we can do something that's environmentally friendly and can get approved by all permitting agencies.
I'm Brock Petrak. I am a civil engineer with extensive maritime background, both commercial fishing, and I'm an avid surfer and skimboarder. I'll be handling the upland side of the project, which includes landscape and architecture planning. I'll be managing that side of the team, as well as civil work and geotechnical and structural.
Great, thanks. I think you guys can sit down if you want. I'll run from here. So we'll keep track of time. So we've got 7 areas I'm going to talk about real quickly. This is outlined in the proposal that you already have. So I'm going to actually move along pretty quickly, and then we can go back into questions and answers if you don't mind for later. So we'll talk about our firm, the technical approach, the team that's committed to it, which are the folks that are here and our other folks in the office, schedule, more of our experience, and then why choose Edgewater. So this is our org chart. This is only the Florida division. And this project here we can manage, very well manage with just our Florida team, as we are numerous projects. I think we've got about 20 going in Florida right now. Again, I'm heading up the top of the org chart. I've been doing this business for 44 years. I worked on 400 marinas across the country and about 200 municipal marinas. Marinas is all we do. It's our focus. We don't get bothered with beach projects or roads and civil and so forth. This is the most important project to us, our marinas, and as would be Cocoa Beach. Our architecture planning group, we've got 4 architects and a landscape architect, a senior landscape architect that is Florida-based also. So we've got that team. The marine and coastal group right here, the bulk of it is here. We also have other folks as well. Javier's another intern. And then on the economics, a big part of the marina, as Jose said, is anybody can draw a pretty picture, but can you get it approved? And how are you going to pay for it? And so those are the 2 key things that Edgewater does, is help you through that. Again, our projects, we're actually a worldwide company. We've worked in all continents. We used to have an office in Singapore and so forth. But let's concentrate on Florida. These are our Florida projects that are active right now. This is all, I came to Florida about 10, 12 years ago, and we formalized the office about 6 years ago, and this is what we've done in the last 6 years. So we've got you surrounded over here with an active project: Melbourne, Sanford Municipal Marina, Leesburg Municipal Marina, and so forth. Again, who are we? We're a specialty marina design firm. In-house, we do virtually everything there's to do with the marina. We have to subcontract very little. So I like to have our engineers go in the boat, doing the bathymetric survey, looking at the shoreline, looking at the wetlands, looking at the seagrass, mangroves, everything. These two guys do a lot of that bathymetric surveying. At a minimum, Jose would lead that with one of our other folks. The geotechnical, structural, the computer physical modeling, Jose heads that up. We use a program, Delft 3D out of the Netherlands. That's an internationally recognized software for basin flushing models, for winds, waves, currents, storms, and so forth. Our planning, landscape architecture, we do have architecture, but our focus are marine structures. So we work with projects in Leesburg right now as a community building, a ship store, bait shop, things like that are all related to marinas. The fourth item, again, is the market analysis I mentioned earlier. We understand the numbers of a marina, not only the cost of it and how do you pay for it, what's the source of funds, but also the operational costs. So we're involved in marinas that we know what the numbers are for all the expenses: labor, insurance, taxes, everything it takes to run a marina, and we can do a cash flow analysis, because I think you don't have a marina, so the question to the public might be, is this going to cost us money? How do we know it's going to make money? I don't know, how your golf course is doing. Golf in Florida is pretty good, so hopefully you're positive cash flow there. Maybe not. But those are the things to look at. It's not only what does it cost to build it, but then what does it cost to operate it. Another element that we do is I'm an expert witness, nationwide for a lot of lawsuits and so forth. And this is a project we're working up on over in Southport in the Carolinas. And this is the before, and then this is after a less than Category 1 hurricane. And it was supposedly designed for more than that. So we're brought in to say, what happened? Why did it happen? How do we not let it happen again? And then we're representing the marina or the insurance companies and working through that so we can unwind or do the forensic engineering to say, this is what we don't want to have happen in Cocoa Beach. And so we're involved in a number of these projects. And it's not my favorite work, but it's a very good learning to understand the liability, the legal side of it, the insurance side, and so forth. So let's just talk about technical approach. You asked in the RFP for 2 phases. Phase 1 was the conceptual design. Phase 2 is the final design and construction. So we need to get through feasibility. And to me, I like to define or tell you what we think feasibility means, and it's 2 things. One is the physical feasibility, which involves what it looks like physically, what's it going to cost. In the old days, it was, is it feasible? Here's the cost estimate, and the engineer walked out of the office. Today, we look at it, and the biggest thing behind that is permittability. So it's, Jose, can your team get this thing approved? What do we need to mitigate? What do we have to compromise with? What are the environmental conditions? And so permittability is huge. The second part of feasibility, and I've already said this a little bit, is what's the economic feasibility? What's the cash flow of the marina as completed, and how are we going to finance it, and will it pay for itself? And when you say pay for itself, you also need a reserve. Just let's start building. If we got to replace some seawalls in 30 years, we got to do this in 30 years, we got to do that. Docks might last 20 to 40 years, we got to replace those. So we need enough money to pay for the operating costs and to have reserves and so forth. We understand all those things. So let's go right through the market study. Step 1, we do a market study. What we hear, and obviously we're going to get a lot of input from you all as to what your vision is, and I think part of that is we're going to create the vision together. We'll give you our experience in Florida and nationwide, but what type of marina is it? Is it transient? Is it a seasonal? Do we want to have some day docks in there for access to downtown and promote economic development? So it's a stimulus for that. You get into marina, what are the slip types? We got wet slips. We do dry stack slips. Are they broadside or finger docks? Is there a mooring field? So we've got open boating. That's a very low-cost way to moor boats. And then we also look at star docks. Occasionally that works if they're offshore and you can't do a connection to the shoreline. The other part is, what's the use of the marina? Is it a parking lot for boats, which is a marina, or is this going to be something that we use in the downtown? What about doing a boat show? The boat show in Fort Lauderdale, where our office is, draws enough economic development every year of 1.5 times the value of the Super Bowl. So if the Super Bowl is worth $1 billion to Broward County, the boat show is $1.5 billion every year. Now, I don't think we're going to have the flip show here, but we could start with something, or we could talk about it. Is that going to be beneficial? Is that something that the community wants? You know, civic events, you could do a lot of activities there. Maybe there's a antique boat show or a sailing show or some other things that would be of interest. In Sanford, big sailing community. And so I think half of that marina is sailboats. And a pleasant surprise there. We're also boaters and sailors and power boaters and so forth. Third point, diversity, access to all. It's getting access to the waterfront with kayaks, SUPs, maybe boat rentals. Maybe there's a rental program. You see Freedom Boats around a lot, but maybe you do your own so that it's bringing the community so you don't have to buy, a multi-$100,000 boat. You can actually get to the water for a little bit of money. Often we'll have a nonprofit or a 501c3 sailing program or a yacht club. So that maybe there's an area for that, or somehow that melds into here if there's folks that are interested in that. And then what are the amenities with the marina? Parking, restrooms. You already have a beautiful pool and golf course here. We probably don't need to do too much there, but maybe a private little marina-related hot tub would be okay. Tiki bar, event lawn, boat clubs. Through all that, we come up with the recommended slip size and mix that we think that these if there's competitive marinas and they've got occupancy available in the 25-foot, but the 40-foot has a waiting list, obviously we want to key on the 40-foot boats. So this is what comes out of the market study, is really defines what kind of project are we interested in doing. Is it a simple little transient marina to get access to the downtown, or is there a little more robust, or does it start with one and can grow to the other? Most projects are phased. With that market study, then we'll do a strengths, weaknesses, opportunity, threat chart, and we'll come up with what are our competitors out there doing, what are their rates, what are their occupancies, and then what are the lists of amenities that they have. Simple things like, restrooms, showers, laundry, ship store, bait shop, and so forth. But then what are the other things that we might be able to do here? You already have a golf course, you already have a swimming pool. So we got a couple of neat things going on. Task 2, existing condition survey. Here we'll take all the existing documentation you have from the property around here, boundary survey, upland surveys, road, sewer, water, utilities. With that, then we'll do the bathymetric survey mapping, and we start out at the feasibility stage at a high-level benthic analysis. So we won't do a detailed one because we really don't even know where we're going to build the marina yet, or if we're going to. But we'll do a high-level analysis of the underwater topography and the species that are there. We just did a survey in Palm Bay last week, and to our surprise, there was no seagrass, even though there's a lot of manatees near it. Well, for a marina, that's like, great. We can dredge, we can do this, we can do that. But sometimes you find the opposite, so you have to deal with that. We'll do a drone orthomosaic mapping, a 3D mapping of the entire property. And we'll do the whole peninsula here. We figured, I know what was in the other meeting, and we're not sure where this might even be, so we'll just do the whole peninsula. Then with that, so we have the market, we've got some ideas of what works out there financially and physically, and we've got some existing conditions-based map. Now let's go ahead and do some conceptual designs. And so these are concept plans, size and number of slips by phase, fixed or floating docks, transient seasonals, event spaces, wave attenuation. We may have some exposure into the lagoon there, Well, we might need to do a wave study and say we could have a 3-foot wave out of this with a 1 in a 50-year occurrence and so forth, so we have to protect that somehow. Well, maybe that adds too much cost to the marina here, we got to scale it back. So we'll look at things like that. Obviously, the marina, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire, sanitary needs to be designed into the project. An item we're putting into virtually every marina today, electric boat charging stations. So that's, you know, strong trend going that direction, no different than electric cars. Access waypoints, ADA and security access. Again, the recreational amenities we've talked about, boater lounge, ship store. And another item is automated dry stack options. And I think that, you know, in the old days, you could build out in the water real easy. But today, it's not our water. It's everybody's water. Maybe it's the state bottomlands. Well, instead of putting 200 boats out there, maybe we put 30 boats out there and put 180 in a building. I was surprised when we started working in Sanford and Leesburg some time ago, they each have a small dry stack at their locations. And it puts the boats inside, keeps them out of the water. You're not having to paint the bottom as much and so forth. So there's some advantages there to talk about. And then with that, you know, early on, we would posture the meetings in your public communication based on your experience with other projects. You know, in the old days, we did it, and I can, you know, I've been doing it for 44 years. You know, we did a plan, we put it on the wall, we defended it. We don't do that anymore. Today, often the first meeting is a white sheet of paper that says vision. Let's talk about vision. You get the community to buy into it, especially if it's a sensitive project. This could be, it might not be. But we'll talk about it. We develop the vision together, and then we'll do a public charrette forum where we're bringing in people and we really start talking about it and where is it going to be located and what are the concerns. This may be an issue that generates a lot of interest. It might not. Most marinas do generate a lot of interest, so we'll see where that goes. With that, another big step early on, task 4, is a pre-application meeting. So we'll take the concept plans and we'll set up a meeting with FDEP and Army Corps. The driver here is FDEP, clearly, or the county. And so we want to get their input, and you know, they won't give you a yes or no, but they'll give you like, get out of here, or this seems to make some sense. That's probably the best you're going to get, but that's okay because they're starting to buy into the, well, if you take care of this and you think about that, then maybe we can work with this. The last thing you want to do is a lot of heavy engineering and go in and the agency says, why didn't you talk to us earlier? Development economics. Again, this is, you know, to me critical to the finance people, and you know, how are we going to pay for this? How much money are we putting up? You know, we did a project in town of Palm Beach and $35 million, and they had a lot more than that in the bank. It didn't matter. I'm guessing that's not the case here. Maybe you have to develop a fund for it, or what's the local share that's going to be if we leverage it with grants. So what will it cost? What's going to be the phasing? Will it pay for itself? Was it financially sustainable? Then we'll do 2 analysis, a static analysis, which is a 1-year cash flow, and a 20-year cash flow. The cash flow will take all the revenue, dockage. We've got, this is a project we did in Fort Pierce at Fisherman's Landing for the county, and identified the total revenues. Then we took off the operational costs. We came up with a net annual operating income of the net income was $1.2 million. At that time, a couple of years ago, we could get 4% 25-year bond money. It would support $19 million of capital cost. Okay, there's a number. The construction cost was 13.4. The county said, well, that's great. We got $6 million to spend doing something else. So the marina normally in a community will make money, and you can use it to pay for other things. Tennis courts, whatever you've got. This is how it probably should work, and hopefully how it will. But if the numbers aren't there, they're not there, and I will tell you that. I know a lot of spreadsheets here, and this is one of probably 20 that's in that report. But again, it's going through all the marina revenues, all the operating costs, and then we'll have a equity, which is the cost that the government would put in, that you'd put in, and then maybe offset it with grant monies, and then a revenue bond, or however it's done. And there's 100 ways to do this, and we'll certainly talk about that. Sorry. I jumped over this. A big important element, another one, is we work with a lot with different marina operators, and we've actually operated marinas. It's not something I look to do. It would be a community. Racine called up one day and said, "We're going to kick out this guy. Can you run it for me?" I said, "Okay, we'll figure it out, but I don't want to do it long term." So with that, another part is we can't allocate any money to this. What can we do? Well, then I'd say, well, get the permits, get it shovel ready, and then can we find a third-party operator or a public-private partnership to finance the project? The marina that's under construction right now, Fort Lauderdale has money, but they didn't want to put $30 million into their marina. So they did an RFP. We were on the team that won the project. We got all the permits and approvals, and that's under construction right now, and it costs the city nothing. And the city actually gets $1 million a year rent out of that. So they're making money by allowing someone to do it. We've done that in Miami at Virginia Key, and then we're doing a project in San Juan with a super yacht marina right now, where we're actually involved in it. So there's other ways of doing it if you didn't have the money. So what's a feasibility study look like? It's going to be a big document like this, colorful pictures, and go through all the items that we just talked about, and wrap it up. The conclusion of it is there a go or no go decision to go forward? So are we done at phase one because it's financially not working or whatever the situation is, and so forth. So 21 minutes, all right. This will go a little quicker. So let's assume it was a go. We've got the money sort of figured out. Let's start doing some grant applications. What's phase two? Phase two, I've identified 11 tasks. Again, you've got that in your booklet from before. I'll go fairly quickly here because I'm told I don't have much time left. So number one is do detailed benthic survey. So now we'll do the detail because we know the marina is going to be here, and these surveys only have a shelf life, maybe 1 year. So if you've got a year span in between, you've got to update it anyway. So those are natural resource studies. We do all this in-house. Update the Beth of Hedrick survey. This is a 150-acre property we did a few months ago. This will probably be a similar large survey going all the way around the peninsula. One thing we would subcontract if we have to do an archaeological or historical study may be required through the FDP Army Corps, but also it could come up at a grant request. They want to make sure we check the box there. Permit applications, that's to prepare and process. Here's 4 recent permits that we've received from the Army Corps and the DEP. Submerged land leases, so it's likely that you've got some property there that you do not have freehold interest in, so we've got to get into that. And those are legal descriptions that are taken from our survey drawings. Geotechnical study soil borings. This is something we would subcontract as well. We don't have a barge and a rig. Maybe we've got to do some offshore borings. If it's a simple marina near shore and you've got a lot of boring information there, that need may be less. Coastal studies, this would come about through the permit process as well, and then it goes into final design. If we need a floating wave attenuator, a fixed breakwater, what are all the things that go into the technical side of making sure if there's a hurricane, it's not going to fall over. Well, we do basin flushing studies. I'm sure that'll be required by the DEP. It's required on virtually every project. Then, task 8 and 9, here are the grant applications. These are the federal BIG grants, boating infrastructure grants, that Edgewater has procured. We've got 14 of them. I think the total was $15.4 million. We're 100% on this in the last about 8 years. The last few that we've got, Boss Oyster over in Apalachicola, we just got them $1.2 million. Spring Lake is $1 million. And then Melbourne is under construction at $1.5 million. So these are grants that the federal government gives. There's an application timetable. It takes a while, but fortunately we've got the formula figured out, and I think we could write a good application here if that was of interest. Obviously, there's a lot of other grants and programs out there, and we have about 30-some programs to talk about when we get to that point. Then task 9, 30%, 50%, 100% design. You all have been through many construction projects, so that's developing the heavy plans and specification document to go out to bid to contractors. And the next step, and there may be 2 contracts, an upland and a marina. Sometimes we'll have one GC. Sometimes it makes sense because your upland work is independent of the marina. It could follow its own schedule. So that's something to talk about at a later date. Multiple contracts, general contractor, even dock selection. Town of Palm Beach wanted to control the docks, so we bid that separately. And they said, this is the dock that we want. And hopefully they did come in, at the price that worked out. Obviously, task 10, go through bidding. Construction administration closeout. This is the project ongoing right now down in Melbourne, and so forth. So that's our scope of work for the 2 phases. We're really excited about that. One thing asked about in the RFP process is what's your commitment to the project? So we're a medium-sized firm. We have about 10 people in the Florida office, 30 to 40 throughout the other offices. I personally will be involved in this project. I'll attend all the major public meetings, and then these are the guys that you're going to see accompanying me. If it's a permitting issue, Jose will be here, the uplands and so forth will be Brock, or one of our architects as well, and Eric as well. So we'll each commit about 20% of our time through the case, through the project course. Project schedule, I think we've got about 6 months. We can normally work faster than the community can do meetings and all. But we figure about 6 to 8 months to do the conceptual study phase, the feasibility. So if that started this quarter in 2023, by next summer that should be wrapped up. And if it moved forward, then that would continue on. Basically, there's 6 to 12 months of permitting, and then probably a year and a half of construction. So, I think end of the 2026 is when a marina could be open, probably at the earliest. Okay. He gave me 4 minutes. So, a little bit on our experience. A lot of this is in the item there. Again, we're only highlighting our Florida projects. I'm just going to flip right through them. And we've got a flash drive to leave with you for this presentation. A lot of it you already have, but we'll leave that with you. This is a project in Orange Beach, Alabama. I know it's not Florida, but it's pretty close to Pensacola. St. George Island, mixed-use project, dry stack, marina. We're building in wetlands here. We're trying to do a tidal creek. Thank you. Bath Oyster and Apalachicola, we just got that grant approved. We're just starting now and heading into construction documents to build that next year. Compass Landing, this is in Melbourne. That's part of a 150-room Margaritaville hotel, 4 restaurants, a nice event space overlooking the marina. Venetian Cove over in Leesburg, we just started that project, and Brock's been doing the alternatives for the marina expansion, and then also the buildings. We've done a lot of work in Fort Pierce. My partner, Jack Cox, who's an internationally recognized coastal engineer and so forth, he designed all these, this living shoreline. And that's the trend today, if you can afford both the time it takes to get it approved and the cost of building it. But fortunately, in this Fort Pierce project, the hurricane wiped out the marina, and then FEMA wrote the check. And instead of just having a big bulkhead, which is what we engineers used to do, now it's like, well, let's soften it up and create some habitat. How about, something for fisheries, for wildlife, for oysters and so forth. The other project we worked on recently in Fort Pierce, Fisherman's Landing, this is for the county. Town of Palm Beach, that opened up a year or 2 ago. This is in Las Olas. Interestingly here, this is a parking lot, and we excavated it out to add to the marina. So if you can't go out into the water, maybe we can come back and land. Your land might be pretty tight here, I'm not sure there. But the amenities here, there's going to be a Houston's and then a Coconuts restaurant besides the marina. Smaller marina down in Tavernier, Ocean Point. We want to expand the marina, improve, get this nasty water out of here and upgrade everything. Bass Pro down in Isla Mirada, we've worked on that. That's a very sensitive area for permitting. But that's under construction where we built that pier. We do some hurricane damage projects. We've got two. One is Fishtail over in Fort Myers. This is right after the hurricane, and we developed alternatives. And another one in Palm Harbor and Cape Hayes. And we are a specialist, probably the only one in the country that understands the 3 or 4 different automated dry stack systems. So the old days, we had a forklift with a big concrete apron out and a noisy diesel tire dusted thing. Today, we're putting it with electric motors and lifts, and we just finished the project in Fort Lauderdale. If anybody's been down to the F3 Marina, it's a 240 boat, and it's 131 feet high. We're probably not building that over here, and we've got, I just got yanked. Last but not least, Sanford. So we were working on a master plan for Sanford some time ago, rebuild the docks, rebuild the dry stack, and so forth. But then Hurricane Ian hit. Actually, the day before we were going to submit for permit applications. So the bad news is this happened. The good news is we've written the grants and the DDD, and Eric and Jose were instrumental here. I think we're going to get $15.8 million for them. And you're also writing an EDA grant for how much?
About $3 million.
About $3 million. So the EDA is going to build some more flood structures so you can protect the land so that it won't happen again. And FEMA is only, their money replaces what was there, but they don't make it better. So we're matching up city, FEMA, EDA, and this will go into construction later this year or next year. Last but not least, a project I did in Chicago about 10 years ago, 31st Street Harbor. We won the Fabian Cousteau Blue Award for the greenest marina in the world. The ship store and the boat offices are underneath a park. We put parking under there so the park had still complete access to the water. And so we have a green roof park with boat parking in the winter, car parking in the summer, and a LEED Gold certified building there. So we won the top international award for marinas, and we're an award-winning firm. So that does cost money, though. It doesn't come free. So why choose Edgewater? We're a specialty consulting firm. This is what we do. We don't get distracted with other projects. We're also a medium-sized company. We can handle projects to 50, I think it's $118 million at Melbourne, the total budget there. But a small project for us is Bonita Springs, 4 slips. So over 400 projects I've worked on personally, 200 public marinas. In-house, we're doing, it's like when you have a contractor, what are you self-performing and what are you subcontracting? I think you generally like to have them self-perform. Bathymetric work, the market analysis, the grants, the funding, the coastal, architecture, landscape, and the construction admin. That's all in-house. We would subcontract the MEP and the soil borings. Medium-sized firm, this is a very important project for Edgewater. We want to expand our municipal market, and we love boating. We're all boaters. We're passionate about the water, passionate about boating, environment, and we're award-winning. So I think with that, I'll take a quick break, and I think it's time for your questions.
All right, I guess I'll start off. Can I use your pointer thing? So I'll show you. I know you guys probably don't quite know exactly what my vision is, but so right here, this east part of the golf course right here, that's where I think would be best. Yep. It's protected obviously by wind and waves and all that. Right here would be like a mooring field.
Right.
So for example, I've been to a few of these marinas and stayed at the ones that you've got here, like Las Olas and the Fort Pierce Marina, stuff like that. So I know that you guys can do some good work. I absolutely love the Melbourne Riverwalk. It's probably out of our budget, but this is, in the scheme of things, if I could dream big, this Melbourne Riverwalk that you've got here is what I would love to see at that location. Something with around 100 slips total on the, if we could actually eventually get to that. And then having some type of incorporating the 27-hole golf course, the Olympic-sized swimming pool, and the tennis that we have, and making it a real legitimate yacht club. We have a lot of the amenities here to actually make this something that could be great. So that being said, I also liked your idea with public-private partnership. I don't know if that's something that we can do. We'll have to look into that. And also keeping the two separate, the upland and the on water. That way we could, I would like to retain the docks for the city, and then the public-private partnership more for the upland. The dry stack storage, I think, is a very great idea. The port is actually starting to kick out some of their marinas, and we're going to have a great opportunity to pick up a lot of that dry stack and options. Sailboats are not going to be as big of a thing for us because we do have 36-foot bridges.
Right.
So it'll be more, in my opinion, between 25 to 35-foot vessels. And I believe I would like transient docks. I would like rental docks. I would like regular docks. I think the transient, the very max we could go is up to 60-foot max. We don't have the depth. We have about 5 foot of depth, so any boat bigger than 60 foot would just not fit.
Right.
Like I said, sailboats, because the masts are too tall. So we're limited in those two markets for a even upper scale or higher end client, but with the port being right there and stuff closing down, we could take a lot of boats easily up to the 50-foot range.
Right. I do think you have a real opportunity with them shutting down those big dry stacks in the port. So it's, where are those people going to go?
I liked also that you included a lot of the financials and as far as what you believe we could do, what we can't. I thought you expressed that very well. And I'm excited to see where we could go with all this.
Another item we're doing on the dry stacks right now, Brock just did the math on putting solar panels on that F3 project, and with 25% of the building coverage, we can create enough power to be off the grid to operate the electric motors that run those lifts. So we don't have the diesel smoke, we don't have the tire dust, we've got electric motors, and we can go off the grid, and there's tax credits available and so forth for that. So,
But with the being beachside, what we have found is the salt water, the salt air does a lot of damage to everything that's exposed to it. And we've been looking at solar panels for some of our other projects, and so far the cost benefit is just not there because we don't have that longevity, that projected longevity for the solar panels because of the destruction by the salt air. So as you talk about being able to have it provide the required electrical component to that, how do you see being able to really get your full, because solar panels right now are really expensive.
very much.
And so when we looked at it, we couldn't recover our cost on the solar panels before they would have to be replaced. Would you find that that's the case with something like the dry dock, or do you think that because it's such a smaller project that you could not need as many panels and therefore?
I would consider it on the roof of the dry stack and or the sides, and we're told the panels will last 20 years. And we've identified a 12-year payback on the cost run privately. You actually have advantages as a municipality. You can buy it a lot more economical and you can sell those tax credits. So I think you've got some options there. But certainly that's something to drill into the detail on. And this won't be the first time we've got somebody that wants to do solar panels near the ocean, and they need to upgrade that technology. If we need to wait a little while, then let's take a look at that. But certainly that's a direction to consider going. And if we did 100% of the building, we would actually have about $5,000 a month in kilowatts back to dollars, I can sell 5,000, you can use it on your own buildings. Pool, I'm sure, is a huge consumer and so forth. So you could generate some power off of that, but.
I suppose it would depend on if, like, the cost effectiveness of it, return on investment, also depending on will it get us grants to pay for itself.
And there are some creative grants out there that you would have potential to get to be a leader in the municipal community. It's being done privately quite a bit, but to my knowledge, nobody municipal has done that, and we might be able to get a big offset on cost.
We did consider it for the city hall. The cost is so high, and the replacement would be needed long before we break even.
Sure. Okay.
So we just
This is just,
yeah.
I mean, as far as marinas go, solar panels are the least of our worries.
No, but it's a good
Yeah,
thought.
it is a good idea.
Yeah, I think it's something to look at that time. We first need to know if we're doing one, and certainly it needs to stand on its own without or with it. And then, we're trying to do solar panels on docks right now, and we concluded it just doesn't work. And they're trying to do it, but it's not there for structurally to walk on it and not be slippery and so forth.
I have a question. First and foremost, great presentation. Thank you. I think that's exactly what the city needs in terms of figuring out the economics of, is the investment going to be worth the return? I got a question for you. 20-year market, or the 20-year economic analysis, how do you roll risk into that assessment? Because if you got a 20-year period, chances are we're going to have a hurricane, high water levels, something like that. How do you roll that into that part of the
So the risk of a hurricane would normally you'd insure over that. And so all these marinas that we have and the ones that were damaged by hurricanes, there was insurance involved. We would actually help you with the insurance on it and say, make sure this stuff's covered. And often what happens is some developers or HOAs don't insure their docks, and then they got a problem. So, but for risk, you'd insure for risk and then have the, if there's damage, they'll write a check. Because as we get into design, we're going to have it's like a stormwater system. We have a 25-year stormwater design. Well, maybe I'll say I'd like to design it for 100 years. Can't afford it. Or we don't have the room to do it. So we'll design for category 1 or 3 or 5, and then with boats in the water, with boats out of the water. And so there's a monetary decision, and then you've got to have insurance over the top of that. So it's an insurance managed approach.
So can we can actually get insurance on a marina?
You would get insurance, liability insurance for the marina itself. Now, through your contracts with the boaters, you put a lot of responsibility on them. They can't damage your docks, and they can't cause you a problem. But the insurance is there for the docks in the event of a catastrophe.
Does that actually work though? Like saying, oh, well, because I deal with a lot of CIP contracts, and there's a lot of like, oh, well, you're responsible for this contractor. Does it actually work if someone has a 50-foot vessel and the vessel ends up ripping the dock out and the guy's like, I don't have the money to pay for it?
It does. In that Southport project, the owner chose to insure the fuel dock and the main pier. He got a check 1 week later. The rest of it, I don't want to pay the money. Then you have it. And then he's fighting with the boaters who didn't have their boat out in time because the storm was coming in. So that develops a squabble there. And so it's a tough situation. He should have kept insurance on the whole marina. The problem would have gone away.
Is this something where, would this be basically like a honey hole? Some marinas are built, and like, for example, I think down over in Palm Coast, there's I forgot which marina it is, but they actually recommend that the boats stay in that marina for hurricanes because it's a safer location. Being in that cove right there, is this something where we would think about evacuating boats for hurricanes or keeping them there?
What I would do is, first, if we add a dry stack, certainly it'll be designed for probably 200-mile-an-hour wind, and that will be a hurricane place where people will come, and you'll get $1,000 to keep a boat there for 3 days.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what's happening in the modern buildings. In the wet slips, frequently they will not keep the boats in the water. So the definition of a hurricane hole, we can design for that, but you probably don't want to pay for it because you can't get the money to offset that additional cost of structurally to do it. So, but these are all things we talk about and go through the detail.
Okay, we gotta wrap up then.
Okay.
You wanna make a last statement? or-
I think, thank you again, everybody. And, again, we're a specialty firm. This is what we do every day. And this project's right in our wheelhouse, not too big, not too small. It'll get the attention of our top folks, myself in particular. And we'd love to work with you.
Okay, great, thank you so much for the presentation. If you can, get a copy of somebody here of
Yep.
the actual presentation. This was recorded, and it will be available for the public in 30 days, or the award is prior to that,
Okay.
but it will be posted on our website.
Are you going to have a public meeting to review the,
What'll happen is, these three presentations this morning will end. This is closed to the public. They will close this out. They will convene a public meeting, evaluation committee, hopefully at about 12 o'clock.
oh, you're doing it today?
Today.
Okay.
And they will submit their scores. The scores will be put up on the screen.
Hey, Wayne, I'm sorry to interrupt real quick. Would it be okay if, because after, all these meetings, I'm finally like telling them exactly kind of what we think, everything. They've all been doing a tailored, generic presentation to us. If we find that there's like 3 of them that kind of stand out and we're just not quite there, can we have another meeting with these people to?
That can be decided at the meeting that you convene.
Okay.
We did it 3 times in Lauderdale, no problem. Happy to come back. So, all right, well, thanks again. Thank you.
Okay, guys. Thank you. Very good.
Pleasure to meet you.
All right, yeah, thanks.
Good to meet you.
See you. Yeah, pleasure. Thank you.
I'm going to explain a couple things about what's going on, so that we don't take any. So this meeting is being recorded. The recordings will be available in 30 days, or the contract is awarded before we put them on our website. So all the 5 altogether, one of the firms that submitted will have a copy. If you can get me a copy of your presentation, I'll save that too in case somebody wants all the records or rest of it. About a half an hour for your presentation, 15 minutes for questions. Trying to loosey on time, or we just want to give the next person. So it's a little bit early, but if you have any questions for me on the procedure, and now we're going to start.
We're ready.
What will happen too, and I've been saying this, I'll have the evaluation committee introduce themselves, but this meeting will end after the next presentation, and then we'll reconvene a public meeting. It'll be open to the public, and they can submit their scores. They can start their evaluation procedure. How exactly they do that will be decided by the committee.
Will the reconvene be at a different date, or is that?
No, it's today, but it's a different meeting.
Okay.
So these meetings are not open to the public.
Right.
That meeting will be.
Okay.
Okay. Sure. So have at it. Introduce yourself, guys, and then it's all yours.
Do you have a specific, based on being recorded, where we should be standing, or does it, audio-wise, does it matter if we're kind of just standing here?
There's a mic on your podium. Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody that really wants to talk, should be at the podium. You can sit down.
Okay.
No one stands up there.
I'm the designated operator up there.
You gotta get the money shot with everybody together.
Yeah.
All right, so we ready?
Yep.
Oh, they're going to introduce them.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm Jared Francis. I'm the city engineer.
Roger McCoy, Director of Development Services.
Walker Dawson, Stormwater Utility Manager.
Keith Capizzi, Mayor.
Patricia Draycott, CFO.
Martha Horak, Interim Deputy City Clerk. Did finance.
Great, awesome. So we'll go ahead and get started. I want to thank you all for allowing us the opportunity to present to you our credentials on this project. My name is Pete Peterson. I would serve as the project manager for this particular project. A little about me, I'm a Melbourne Beach resident for the last 35 years. Spent most of my time in Brevard County. I'm an avid boater. I spend most of my time in the Sebastian Inlet area, but sometimes venture up north here. I've worked on several projects in Brevard County, past and present. I was an engineer record for the Titusville mooring field, working on some marina renovations in the south part of the county right now, and also doing some shoreline stabilization projects along the Banana River and the Indian River County for various municipalities and the county. With that, I want to introduce you to Tim Mason.
Good morning. I'm Tim Mason. I'm a senior principal, professional engineer with Geosyntec. I'm responsible for our waterfront development projects and waterfront projects in the southeast, mainly state of Florida, into the Gulf. We do a lot of work in the Caribbean and Central America as well. I've been with the Geosyntec entity, formerly with ATM, which Jim's going to talk about a little bit later, in the ATM branch, for 30 years, which is my entire career. So I've worked on a lot of marina projects, just like this one, feasibility, all the way through design and construction. In addition to my project work, I've also been involved in authoring some marina design guidelines, both nationally for the Association of Civil Engineers, as well as internationally. And I serve on a board with the Association of Marina Industries, where I'm a faculty member teaching marina managers about marina planning, design, and permitting. With that, I'll turn it over to Mark.
Mark Leslie. I was the manager of Titusville Municipal Marina for about 5 years. I started my marina career at Titusville after doing an internship for the city manager there. I started as a part-time worker and worked my way into the manager position. I ended up taking an early retirement from the city and went to work for Patrick Air Force Base and managed their marina for about a year. And at that point decided to go ahead and retire from full-time work and work part-time, which I'm doing now with Geosyntec. I think that's the main thing that I have as far as marina experience, except that I'm an avid boater and fisherman. And I worked in marinas pretty much all my life in high school. So with that, I'll turn it over to Gary, please.
Hi, I'm Gary Basemore. I'm a longtime resident of Cocoa Beach, 41 years here, and I've had a survey office here for 23 years in Cocoa Beach, right across from Lori Wilson. I'm a licensed Florida surveyor. I've done surveys for all the residential canals for the city of Cocoa Beach through another engineering firm several years ago. I have a lot of knowledge of the area. I also am an avid boater. I'm a licensed captain, and I do a lot of the support work for marina data collection and any of the surveys and current studies, tide studies, and that type of stuff. So that's it.
Thanks, Gary. Good morning. I'm Jim Langenbach. I'm a senior principal engineer with Geosyntec. I've got 31 years experience, and I'm also a regional manager. I'm a 30-year Brevard County resident. I've lived in Satellite Beach on the canals off Grand Canal for the last 25 years, so I spend a lot of time in the Banana River boating in this area. I opened Geosyntec's Florida Space Coast office 20 years ago to serve Central Florida clients, which include private industry, municipalities, state and federal clients such as NASA. In my role on this project, I'm going to ensure that this project integrates with the sand capping project that we're very much involved with and that we're currently working on, and that as a regional manager, that all the necessary resources are made available for this project to meet any schedule and budget requirements. Moving on to the next slide is our org chart. The org chart includes a team that was just introduced. So I'm not going to go into a lot in the green box, and I'm going to focus on the blue. For this project, we've identified 4 major work components, which include the market analysis, the permitting and feasibility, shoreside and upland support facilities, and then the engineering feasibility, which in a lot of ways is sort of an umbrella over all those other components. Within these important areas, our team brings clear differentiators. As an example, in the environmental permitting and feasibility box, Claudia and Tammy with Applied Ecology, they're a subcontractor on our team, they'll provide critical experience-based insights into the permitting ramifications of each alternative that we look at. Tammy's experience while at DEP, she was at DEP for many years as well as Army Corps, she essentially led and trained many of the DEP permitting group personnel that are going to be receiving any future permit applications, as well as her experience with other agencies really dials us in on the permitting considerations for this feasibility study and any potential future design. Mark Leslie, as he mentioned, brings decades of really unique experience managing marina facilities in Brevard County. That unique experience, what it does is, and as well as he didn't mention it, but we should have mentioned it, is securing grant funding. He's done a lot of work in terms of securing grants related to the operations and permitting and things associated and expansions of these types of facilities. So he really uniquely understands the real constraints and feasibility elements of a marina because he knows it from the operator perspective. Which is really important for us as engineers. We're the engineers, but the operator perspective is a really important component when considering different marina concepts and also the aspect of securing grant funding. Robert and our ATM branch, of Geosyntec, they're industry leaders in the area of market analysis related to marinas. We've literally developed the guidance and market analysis approach that's now being widely used by industry for assessing what type of boating marina facilities and size for the design and permitting and conceptualization of marina facilities, and will they be financially viable? Pete and Tim, they bring tremendous experience on the specific type of project work that's outlined in the RFP, as they mentioned. Tim is a bit humble when he mentions that he's I've been involved in some of these publications. Well, shoot, he's the co-author of ASCE's Marina Design Manual. I mean, that's a big deal. And our team has also published a lot on recreational marina facilities. So we're really bringing a lot of that to bear on a project like this. Additionally, like Gary mentioned, he's done a lot of the surveying work with ATM, which is a branch of Geosyntec, right within the Cocoa Beach area, is very familiar with it. And many of us on the team live here local and are very familiar we have a solid understanding of the lagoon, its issues, and the potential opportunities and challenges a marina facility brings. A little bit more about Geosyntec as a company. We're a specialized consulting and engineering firm with 11 offices in Florida, over 2,000 engineers, scientists, and support staff. We've served private and public sector clients since 1983. We're focused on projects that involve the environment, natural resources, and civil infrastructure. We acquired ATM in 2021. Some of these folks are from the ATM team. They're an internationally recognized leader in waterfront consulting in marina and coastal engineering. ATM staff operate as a fully integrated branch of Geosyntec. We actually had a long history of working with ATM prior to the acquisition because of their specialized experience. We would bring them in on coastal engineering marina projects as well as water quality components because they've got a strong water quality team as well. We have been working for the city of Cocoa Beach since 2018. Some of those recent projects involve the Stormwater Management and Resiliency Master Plan. We're actually worked on the Burris Way LID project, and we're in the midst of the design. We did the alternative, sort of a feasibility study analysis for the Gulf muck capping dredging design project. We prepared the 60% design, and now we're working on the final design for that significant project that's actually right in this footprint of this potential marina facility. We're also involved in a number of additional water resources, environmental, and coastal engineering projects in the Space Coast area. We understand that the city would like to assess the feasibility of a marina facility. Well, we're going to walk you through some really cool conceptual alternatives ranging from a simple small docking facility to large comprehensive marina. We've already done a lot of the homework on this. We do recognize the critical importance of developing an approach that is consistent with the city's vision. So while we're going to be providing some general concepts and some really cool 3D graphics that really help to convey an engineering design that, if selected, we would be working with you to get input on those alternatives before we move forward with any concepts. We just want to give you a feel so what we take as an engineering concept can become a conceptual 3D imagery that you can really look at and explain to the community. We also recognize and are familiar with some of your constraints, ranging from the 400 channel depth, existing facilities such as the small DMMA and the access near the wastewater tanks, and whether that needs to be maintained for future projects, the existing kayak launch, obviously the sand capping related project that we're working on, and how this project may need to be integrated with that future capping project. Pete's now going to get into the details of our tailored feasibility approach for our marina projects.
Thanks, Jim. So as I said, I would serve as the project manager. I'm going to be the day-to-day face that you'll be with. And so ATM Geosyntec's been doing feasibility studies probably longer than most of these other firms have even been around. We were established back in the 80s. We've been doing this. We specialize in marine and waterfront. So we've had this approach that we've come up with that has been very successful. We've been doing it for a while. And so the big picture project is on the right, where you have the phase one, which is the feasibility, which is where we are now. From there, we move into the permitting, the design, construction, et cetera. But let's just talk about the key steps in the feasibility. So we've got the stakeholders and the public input, which is critical. We move into the market analysis. We come up with the opportunities and constraints, a matrix to see what we've got. We look into the permitting. Then we come up with some concept development based on what we've got up to now. And then we get to the all-important cost estimates and economic pro forma that sort of go hand in hand. And then we figure out how we're going to pay for this. And then, if everything's a go, we move into the permitting, design, and construction, which, of course, we can do in-house. So step one is the stakeholders and public input. Right from the bat, we want to get involved with the public, the stakeholders, the city, and this is a process that continues from start to finish. We don't want, at the end of the feasibility, for people to come up and say, what? I didn't know anything about that. What are you talking about? So this is an ongoing process in the feasibility from start to finish. We want public and city involvement. We all work hand in hand together. The market analysis, this is critical. We all think we might know what needs to go here, but when you start putting the numbers together and doing the research, we may find out something that we didn't know already. And this is an example of a project in Fort Pierce for a dry stack feasibility that we did, where we went in and we look at our target area, and this is Fort Pierce, so it's a little bit different, and we look at the zip codes. This is one of the many things. We look at the zip codes, we look at what size vessels are registered in those zip codes. Are they predominantly 10 to 15 foot, or are they center consoles? So we take all this information in our target market area, and at this point it may include Orlando. And the other thing we do at the same time is look at what the other facilities in the area are doing. What are their slip rates? How many slips do they have? What amenities are they? Do they have fuel? Do they have pump out? We look at all these things, and we also look at what they're charging for their slip rates, because eventually we're going to have to come up with that number, and it's going to go into this pro forma that I'm going to talk about. So the market analysis tells us a lot. It may tell us stuff we already know, but it may also tell us stuff that we didn't really consider. Moving on with the opportunities and constraints, and these are just some that we've identified today. There's more, but these are some that come to the top of the list. And so the opportunities here are, I think you all know that the Blue Point's dry stack facility is closing. Those boats have to go somewhere. They're not, the people that have them in there probably can't keep them in their backyard, or they don't want to trailer them back to Orlando. So that's going to be a huge opportunity, and that will come into the market analysis. We have pretty easy access from the Banana River. There's some depth constraints, but not really with the 400 channel. But it's manageable. I know you guys actively dredge it. It's well marked, it's maintained, it shows up on the charts. So that's an opportunity. There's plenty of room and depth here. And I'm going to tell you that most of the areas in the state of Florida and anywhere else, if it's a prime place for a marina or a port, it's already been done. This is one of the very few, and I travel all over the state and southeast, and I'm going to tell you, this is a rare opportunity to have an area that has plenty of room, plenty of depth, and it's protected. It's a relatively protected area. And then looking at, again, to some other opportunities. As far as I know, to the north, the nearest marina with fuel is on the Barge Canal, one of those facilities, or the port. And to the south is Melbourne, down near O'Galley. I don't think there's any reliable fuel sources between there. So that's an opportunity to draw in some revenue sources. Imagine having your boat being able to come into Cocoa Beach and get fuel and keep your boat there. That's a huge opportunity. What are some of our constraints? We all know about the muck capping project. We're doing that. We know that as well, better than anybody. And Jim is heading up that program. So we've got that person on our team, on our company. A little bit of a constraint is the flushing of water quality. I think we're all going to agree nobody wants to really keep their boat in the water for a prolonged period of time, unless you're prepared to clean your boat hull, every week, Gary? So that's a constraint, but it's a constraint to be overcome. Up on access and connections right now with the golf course isn't going anywhere. Golfers and boaters sort of get along, but they're not going to be really amenable to giving up some of their space. And then the permitting and the manatee concerns. So I'll get to that, Tim, on the next slide with the permitting. So Tammy and Christina couldn't be here today. They had some other thing, but they are on our team. And they're actually doing the permitting for the sand capping, correct?
Yep, that's correct.
So we've got the same permitting group on the muck capping as any marina work. You guys know about permitting. Nobody likes it. It's a necessary evil. I personally hate it, but it's part of the process. Right, one of the biggest things in addition to the muck capping is the manatee protection plan, which has been in place for how many years, Mark?
Since 2003.
Yeah, it's archaic, it's old, it's not very functional, but we got to live with it. And there's been some talk that they're going to update it and fix it. They've been saying that for years. So right now we have to live with it. I think that the current rule is something about 1 powerboat slip per 100 linear feet of shoreline, which is restrictive, but we've got some opportunities here in this particular site. We also have to deal with the submerged aquatic vegetation, the wetland, the mangroves. All of those are standard. Permitting, it's going to take a year or more. And anybody who tells you they can do it in less than that is lying to you. Because I'm here to tell you, once you get the Corps of Engineers involved, you get NIMS involved, it's just a long, drawn-out process. It will take a year or more. So we took those, what we know to date, and we came up with some concepts just to see what we got here. And so this first one is a very small, like almost a day slip thing. It's the access is off the site there near the kayak launch. And I think this is just really simple, extends to the north, and I think we had 16 day slips or short-term slips. We don't actually show these on boat lifts, but they could be. So then we extend a little bit further. We say, okay, let's extend a little bit further north into that basin and include some bigger slips. And then let's add some side tie. Maybe we've got some transient. Maybe you want to put a fueling facility, pump out, all those things. And then we're like, from there, well, let's move into the full Monty. This is like, what if we're going to go big or go home? And so what we're showing here is nearly a full build out, with the permitting, the number could change, but what we've done here is we've added, and you'll see all the boats are on lifts in this particular case, but there's also some long side tie that could be beneficial for transient vessels coming through, which opens up the Big P funding, which Mark's going to talk about, fueling capabilities, transients and all that. And so we've come up with these ideas. Go ahead, Tim. And here's just an example of a facility we did in St. Petersburg, Maximo Marina. And I want to show you what lifts, so you get an idea of boats on lifts. The picture on both of them are from Maximo, and it shows you a covered boat slip with boat lifts on fixed docks. On fixed docks, correct. And here's an example. The same facility on the left. It's a different dock, but you can see floating docks with boat lifts on the left. The covered slips were key. This place is a gold one. I think it was filled up before we even finished construction. We were taking reservations. On the right is another floating docks with boat lifts not covered, but you can see the single access point there in the middle. So we took that and we said, okay, what is this thing going to really look like? And this is really important because this goes back to the public input and the stakeholders, because you can show people two-dimensional plans and on what it looks like on paper, and it's, yeah, okay, cool. This is and again, this is one concept. This doesn't mean this is what it's going to be, but it's a good idea of what we can do and what that concept that we already showed you would look like. This is from the north looking to the south. Yeah, go ahead, Tim. Southwest. Yeah, I'm sorry. Directions off. Here's this is north to south. So this is the same facility. You can see the lifts or the slips on the left would not be covered in case we put sailboats in there. So we have mass clearance issues. Go ahead, Tim. Here's a view, the same concept from an eye-level view. This shows fixed timber docks. That's just, it was easy for the guy who does this to do that. They could be floating, they could be concrete, they could be something else. And then I thought this is really cool. This is the same facility with the covers. I think somebody said there's probably already fish under those slips already. So that's just something we can do. Again, that's the concepts from what we've shown you. We can do it with anything. And so we take all this and we get to the nitty-gritty of paying for this thing. And so ATM Geosyntec is a pioneer in what we call the economic pro forma. We've been doing this forever. Rob Sims, who was on our team, actually was the one that developed this. He's so old, he did it in Lotus 123, if any of you are old enough to remember that. And we got it to finally updated. It's done in-house, it's done by boaters, it's done by people who understand it. We don't farm this out to some economic team, we do it in-house. So we take all the inputs, operating costs, maybe if we're having fuel, those incomes, staff costs, submerged land lease fees. We put all this together and we come up with this. And there's a lot of steps between the first slide and this one. It's not that simple. But it's pages and pages of spreadsheets. But in the end, we get to this. The cost from the bottom line And if you look at that, to the lower right is really the magic number. The annual operating return on assets. And that's where the city gets to go, yeah, it looks good, or you know what, we're not gonna make any money on this. This isn't feasible at all. I don't wanna take this on. It's just not worth our time. And at that point, if the city's not into it, we walk away. Projects set aside for now. So when we get to this, we decide maybe, yep, we're gonna explore a little bit further, maybe move forward. Now we gotta pay for this. And so how are we gonna pay for this? And I'm gonna turn it over to Mark, who is the master of grant opportunities.
First of all, just say, as a marina manager, if I had had all of this wherewithal behind me, life would have been a whole lot easier. Rob is really a master with the spreadsheets. He can tell you if you hire this person, what it's going to do to the bottom line immediately. It's a really good resource. One of the things we wanted to let you know is that over the years, ATM and Geosyntec have gotten over $43 million worth of Big P grants. That's a lot. While this particular project may not be a full-blown transient facility, there may be transient vessel opportunities. FEMA sometimes helps with mitigation funding, and this is more or less to show that we understand grants at all different levels, resiliency, FEMA, etc. The ones that are really go-to, as you know, are FIND and FBIP. Those are the two that you can match 50 to 50 and pretty much pay for a project if they have the funding. I used a FIND grant, an FBIP grant, a Big P grant, a CVA, Clean Vessel Act grant, and some other funding that we had left over from a FEMA mitigation to fully fund the mooring field project with a pump out boat and added amenities at the marina. So it's quite easy to match all the grants, but you need to understand the process. You need to know that you have a grant, you've got to take it to city council or commission and get permission, then you apply, then you get award, then you got to award the contract, and it all has to fall into place. And that's one of the biggest challenges with the grants is understanding, you know, from our end that the city has its pieces of the process that have to take time. So the Clean Vessel Act grant is one that I really like to tout because it's really good from the public perspective. You're cleaning up the poop from the waterway, and they match 75% for everything they do. If you need some lift station equipment or piping on the docks or a pump out boat, they'll pay 75%, and FIND and FBIP will match the other 25. So it's important to understand all these relationships in order to secure the funding, because as somebody who ran an enterprise fund with debt, the less debt you have, the more successful you're going to be, and the less you're going to get yelled at by the city council when you don't meet your targets. That's good. Turn this over to Tim.
Yes, thanks, Mark. So now I'm going to just talk a little bit about some of our other project experience. We felt like maybe in our written qualifications that were submitted, we kind of undersold ourselves as far as our level of experience in marina projects. So in general, this is just talking about the entirety of the time, my tenure, and then even the years before I was with the company. We've done over 2,100 waterfront projects. The majority of those from the ATM branch are marina projects, some form or another, from big to small, public to private, 200 plus with municipal clients, and then a lot of private projects. Pete mentioned it earlier, and I think Jim did. We've been doing these feasibility studies and pro formas and these things since 1994. I joined the company in 93, and we've been doing them for that entire time. And like Pete said, I think we've been doing these longer than some of the other companies maybe even existed. So these are a few project shots at the bottom, just some nice looking pictures. I'm going to go through just a few real quick. This is the one Pete mentioned. This is Maximo in St. Pete. This was a market-driven marina renovation. So he mentioned about the covered slips. A lot of folks down there said, you're never going to get those fees for those covered slips. It's not going to work. And we did the market, figured out that that would be the case, and as he said, they came right in and the place was sold out, and they're really doing well down there. This includes, as he said, covered berths, fixed and floating. There was a new fuel dock, a bunch of shoreline improvement, bulkheading and dredging, and some stormwater issues that had to be dealt with. So it covered everything. This is some smaller projects, but municipal. stuff I've worked on since 2012 with the city of Jacksonville, park facilities. So boat ramps, kayak launches, small docking. This is a day dock for the Palms Fish Camp, which is a popular restaurant on the waterway. All of these projects are funded primarily by FIND and some FEMA. So all of it ties in together, and we're familiar with all the deadlines and critical schedules and things like that. This is a unique one. This is City of Tavares, inland from here. This is one Pete spearheaded. It was a seaplane dock for the municipality there. And these photos, there's no boat or no planes or boats on it because this was taken right at the completion of construction. But you'll notice the dock here on the left side, the curved dock, that was the seaplane specific dock. There's no piling sticking up. So we had to deal with unique conditions with alternative anchoring system. So here we have chains and anchors down on the bottom because the planes can't operate and pull up to the dock if a pile sticks up. So we've dealt with a lot of unique conditions in projects like this, which makes it interesting. This is the city of Fernandina Beach, near where I live in Northeast Florida. Public marina. This was we've had this client since the mid-90s. I think this might have been one of our first feasibility studies in that era. They have huge sedimentation issues that we've had to deal with there. Working with nature, the previous marina, the original one, the docks were all kind of misaligned in here in the inside, and it exacerbated the sedimentation. Well, now we've realigned everything to work with the natural currents that flow through. And again, that picture on the left was right when they finished the new construction. It's a floating breakwater, and then some interior docks, and then some a variety of boat sizes on there, from super yachts down to day trippers. This is the Charleston City Marina. They've been a client of ours since 1994. This is a big marina. It's 300 plus slips. Deals a lot with transients. It's won a few awards internationally with PIANC, which is a international navigation group. So we won a Marina Design Award for this, as well as Marina Dock Age, which is a U.S. publication that gives awards every year for well-run and well-designed marinas. This is one that's a personal favorite of mine. This is Yacht Haven in St. Thomas. This was a market-driven, we think, the first super yacht facility to be designed purposefully based on the market in the Caribbean. I worked on this starting in 2002. This is after it's been built, and of course this is nice eye candy because this is 48 slips, and we get some of the biggest boats in the world come here. So this is a really cool one. That one also won similar design awards. We have an office in Dubai, which is actually one of the biggest branch offices for the ATM branch. We've been working over there since 2005, and this is what's called Dubai Marina, which this is a nighttime shot, obviously. It's a marquee location over there. We've done over 500 berths for this one client and one facility. It spreads out along this kind of waterway with all the buildings around it. But this one's also won some awards from the UK, who give awards for marina operations and environmental stewardship. And then just a couple of current projects. This is the Florida Yacht Club in Jacksonville. They had a bunch of hurricane damage. They had a floating breakwater that didn't work properly. We came in and were able to actually get them a permit, which is, to me, was a miracle for this rock breakwater you see that encircles the facility to properly protect them from hurricanes. So that's being installed now, and the docks are being replaced behind it. So smaller scale project, but again, regional. And then these are a couple other projects, again, current. They're just being finished up in Charleston on the river there, a couple different rivers. Seabreeze Marina, it's about 75 slips for various sizes. And then the St. John's Yacht Harbor, there you can see there's sort of no profile boat lifts for all the slips. Again, it's practical, real application of what Pete has shown in the renderings. And with that,
thanks, Ken. Some of those projects bring back some memories. I worked on most of those projects in some form or another. One interesting thing, Tim did mention the Yacht Haven Grand, the one in the Virgin Islands. We got that award because the original consultant came in with these financial numbers that didn't make sense. They said that the marina was going to be full all the time and was going to generate all this money. And Rob came in and said, wait a minute, those vessels aren't even in port during hurricane season. And it changed the numbers completely. And that's something that we picked up with our experience. They made a huge difference. So getting back to why we think you should select us. Obviously, we have a local project team. We're all here. I'm 20 minutes away as your project manager. We have a familiarity serving the city in various things, stormwater, the muck capping, which is going to be a huge issue. We know the unique site conditions. We've got those people on staff that are working on this project with us. Like I said, we've been doing feasibility studies since marinas were something more than mom and pops. We do a lot of work for the bigger marina operators, Safe Harbor, Oasis, a lot of those. We're their go-to consultant. We're used to working on innovative solutions. Every project is different. Every project seems to have something special that we have to use some innovation. In New York, we were working on one where we couldn't drive piles because the subway line was running beneath the marina basin. So we're used to innovation and making things happen. And as Mark said, we have a huge successful rate at getting money, which is the bottom line. That's a big deal. Everything can be feasible. If we can't pay for it, guess what? It's a no-go. And we really feel that our past successes result in current future success. We've been doing this. We're excited about the project. I hope you guys are too. And with that, we're going to open to questions. I know that. Did you want to address any more on the muck capping?
No, I'll see if it comes up in as a question.
Okay. So, yep. So that's our presentation. And any questions you might have, we'll be more than happy to answer.
I guess I'll start again. So, like I said, my name's Keith. It's kind of my brainchild here. Like, I ran on trying to get a marina into the city. I absolutely love that you guys are all local. To me, that means a lot because you understand the area. You understand the need, especially the future need with Blue Points. You understand some of the issues with depth constraints, and you understood and you pointed out exactly my point of that is the ripe location for a marina, and it's very, very rare to actually have an opportunity like what we've got without having to throw a bunch of extra money into making it work. So I like that you guys noticed all that stuff. My big picture, if I could have whatever I wanted, basically I would love to see something like a city walk with overlooking marina, the yacht club, which incorporates the use of our 27-hole golf course, our Olympic-sized swimming pool, and our tennis, and then having the dry dock as well off to the side, because I honestly believe that if we build this right, the same thing, the marina could be full before it's even finished. We just have such an opportunity. It's like a perfect storm, I believe, of things shutting down, having the perfect location. Everything could work out as long as we get funding. So I think you guys kind of nailed a lot of good points there.
Your idea of the boardwalk, I like that. Obviously got the mangroves. We have to take issue with all those, but I mean, this is just the start of what this could really become in the end. And it's an empty canvas, and you hit on everything that we observed as well. It's the perfect place and perfect time.
And I'd like to, possibly. The thing is, we need to start smaller, like maybe not huge. Honestly, I'd like to start off with around 50 slips, but whether it's feasible or not, that's for you guys to decide. But fuel, electric, pump out, I want to offer free pump out to encourage people to use it. I think that would be a great selling feature. Is no longer are people going to be, have no other choice. A lot of people don't want to go because they don't want to pay $5 to pump out, which is ridiculous, right? So if it's free, we encourage even more stuff that's good for the environment. The fueling, we encourage fueling. There is Marker 24 across the way, but they're over $1 more than everywhere else. So we could easily compete with that. Not that we're supposed to, but we should just be fair to the residents. That's what I think. But the fuel is another environmental issue where everybody that fuels their docks, they use jerry cans, and everybody knows them jerry cans. You leak probably a cup of it in the water every time you fuel anyway. So it's like, this could be presented as a very green and good for the environment. So thank you.
And that's just a comment on that. That's a great point. We ran into that a lot, or run into a lot, in the Caribbean. If anybody's been down there in the BVI, if you've been to Trellis Bay, you know, it's a beautiful anchorage and there's lots of boats and sailboats. But the problem is they don't have regulations that are enforced. So you have people taking jerry cans out, you have people pumping out, throwing stuff overboard, and it turns your paradise into kind of what you don't want.
One more thing too, you guys were mentioning the capping just before you came or stopped. The capping, so do you guys see an issue with putting pilings in with the capping project, or actually I even wanted to incorporate a mooring field to the east of that as well, but is there any problem you think with doing a mooring field or pilings with the capping project?
It'll just need to be integrated in the type of piling that's used or the installation technique of the piling. We vet that with our geotechnical team, because one thing that will happen is, you know, we all know the muck is basically like organic silt. It's like, you know, we call it the black mayonnaise, right? It's very loose, it's soft. But once we put the sand cap on that, it essentially is it compresses down, and we've got all the compression testing and everything that's been done on it to look at what the compression is on that. So once it's a cap, and you have the sand cap on, that muck is no longer like an extremely loose material that's just ready to go over all over the place. It's basically like you've squished and compressed it down more into from loose jelly into a tight pancake. So you can push a piling through it or pound a piling through it.
So it's actually more beneficial.
I wouldn't say it's more beneficial. It certainly still will represent a challenge that needs to be looked at by our geotechnical experts that, you know, did all the compression modeling and looking at, and they'll come up with the specific piling installation approach and or a combination of different types of, you know, whether it needs to be floating in a certain area or alternative types of systems, you know, that sort of thing. So, but it's certainly, we don't see it as it's an issue. It's something that it needs to be considered, and it's something that can't be ignored. But a lot of that area, you also have quite a bit of depth too. So, you know, that's an area where it's going to get a 1 foot cap, and it really, it's not, you're not going to be worried about the vessels potentially stirring it up because you've got a lot of depth. If you ended up with an alternative that wanted to look at, you know, running up using this segment, more of this segment, and running up along the west side with slips all along that would be an area where it may be more advantageous to go, hey, the muck volume in that little finger canal is small enough, let's just dredge it then. Like just, and not cap that one area, because it's all like 8 feet in there. So if you wanted to have an area through there, that would be easy just to like, well, we'd carve that out and maybe not cap it and just go in there and do a small dredge project to remove the muck. Just like you've been doing in all the residential canal systems, and just handle it that way. But once you get out into the main body out here, you know, this is all real deep. Yeah. And this area right here is actually, we'll be using that as a sort of an engineered sump. So the idea is it'll be sand capped, but it'll still remain with that topography, so that over time any new accumulation of soft sediments will actually kind of just work their way towards. Then we're going to want to by gravity kind of move into that. So in the future, that's where you would actually just, you know, pump the well, that sump out when it accumulates muck. But pilings and everything else could go right through there.
Thanks, Jim. And that's another benefit. We've got that expertise like none of the other firms. We're doing it, so we understand it. We don't have to find somebody else who's an expert in it. We are the expert, and we're doing it, and we're well aware of it.
We're doing pilings and capping and walls and everything else through, you know, contaminated sites, like not like muck sites, but like you know, New York City Superfund sites with you know nasty chemicals that have been sand capped and having to put in piling systems and such and not release those things to the environment. So we're doing that there. We can certainly do that with these kind of situations with you know, the compressed organic muck.
Got a quick question for you on the economic analysis. First and foremost, I thought it was hilarious that you brought up Lotus 123 when I first graduated.
So you just showed your age.
Yeah, so when I first graduated with my degree, my boss used Lotus 123, and I'm like, what is this? This is like old school Excel. So I that made me laugh. But so I noticed you had, it looked like the way you run the analysis is just a 1-year snapshot.
There's different ways to do that. I think that was for that particular project. That was a 1 year.
Okay.
But we can do the 10-year. We can do longer than that. I just wanted to show that as an example because this particular client was a small project on the West Coast. It was a private group of investors, and they just wanted a quick snapshot right off the bat.
Right.
We can certainly do 10-year and longer. And normally we would, and probably for this project, we would definitely do more of a 10-year long-term economic profile.
Because I would imagine as a marina manager, you understand that there can be a 2, 3, 5 year, 7-year cycle for certain expenses that you see. And then the other thing is how do you roll risk of catastrophic events into that? Let's say you do a 20-year analysis. How do you look at that?
That's hard. And and I don't have the magic bullet for that because think who predicted COVID, right? And that's something that you've got to be conservative in your input, in your output. One thing we've always wanted to do is we've done these and go back 20 years later and revisit the ones we've worked on and see how correct we were. That's hard to do. Things change. But in answer to your question is that's tough, but there's some conservative conservation built into this that we take into. And as you said, like the 10-year, it'll show up each year. Like we're going to have, this year it's this much, year 2, year 3. We don't start making money till year 5, and all those things will come out in the
and he can build in like a capital reserve fund.
Yeah.
In the bigger, the 10-year, like Pete said, a lot of times people need a quick. That's why we call it the snapshot.
Yeah.
That's at full absorption once the thing's up and running, just to show you down the road what it will be. And that's a much less expensive and time-consuming thing to do. When you go to the 10-year one, they include financing and any kind of CapEx replacement cost. Once that's built in, you can figure that in as well. So yeah, it's a great tool because once you have the base running, I just did this with Rob for a project in Antigua where they're rehabbing a marina and want to add dry storage and some things. And they said, okay, that scenario is cool. What about this? So there's all these what if scenarios, and once the model's set up, that's the best part. You can just start. I mean, it's not as easy as pressing a couple keys, but it's pretty quick to look at different scenarios, and you can see what your bottom line is for each scenario.
Right. Like Mark said, what's the effect of hiring a third person to do work on the fuel dock? It all comes out at the end, and you can see.
Can you run that cost-benefit analysis based on certain scenarios of with and without public-private partnerships?
You can do it any way you want.
Yes.
You can do it. It's like I said, we showed the 2 pages. There's a lot more to it in between. And it's a constant, sometimes it's a work in progress. Things change and you can make the changes as you go. It's a very valuable tool and it's a very flexible tool.
Yeah, and that's one of the big things we still don't. We've been talking about doing this marina for a really long time now, but this property that we're sitting on here and where the marina would be tied to, this is actually state lands. Right. We have a deed. There's restrictions to the deed, and we haven't got a clear answer from anybody on whether or not we can bring in a private entity to run the marina.
Right.
Which, in my opinion, is probably the better way for the city to go. We've got a golf course that we don't do a very good job of running with city staff, so, I mean, that's just kind of my opinion. But we got to figure that out. Can we do a public-private partnership or not?
Right.
In this particular area.
And you can absolutely use this as a tool.
I can tell you that my dealings with state lands recently is yes. I mean, we're looking at mooring fields down in the Keys, which are all fee-waive leases, and possibly bringing in private sector firms to run the shoreside facilities, needing to provide the dockmaster services. And they're okay with it as long as everything is reasonable and some private sector firm isn't really making a bunch of money.
It's the deed on the property here. It's not necessarily submerged state lands. It's this deed with the golf course, and this is actually state lands here that, like this country club and everything. And there's a deed that we have with the state where we pay like $1 a year to lease this. And there's
like $1.
There's restrictions on, like this golf course cannot be operated outside of city.
Yeah, like city staff has to run it. And the question is do we have to have city staff running a marina? So,
Yeah, that's good information and the opportunities and constraints.
Just so I understand one quick thing, will you guys, as part of your feasibility, recommend staffing levels as part of that analysis?
We would make some assumption, yes. In order to run a marina with 168 slips, it requires this much staff on a payroll of the common going rate. So yes, absolutely, all operating costs, lease rates, if you've got submerged land lease rates or D rates or all that, it's all put into the pro forma.
Okay.
Jim, like I said, you can tweak it. Like, well, what if we hired 2 more people? How does that number change?
Jim, did we ever figure out, is this sovereign submerged lands out here? Because it's an old borrow pit. Do you know? I know that's probably a question for Tammy.
Yeah, and we have that answer. So I don't have the answer in my head.
Right.
But I recall us looking into that and getting feedback on that.
I actually did a little research. Go back to one of the earlier slides. It's kind of interesting. On one of our first slides, I went to the property, back a little bit more towards the beginning, the property appraiser's office there. So actually, Brevard County Schools owns some of the property there adjacent to Cocoa Beach High School. The state of Florida owns the majority of it, and then Cocoa Beach owns most of the inner basin there, at least according to the property appraiser's office.
Right.
I tried to draw the lines on there, but it just got too busy. But I thought it was interesting that Brevard County Schools actually own some of the submerged land off of the school there. So,
tie into that, is it more or less a deed of dedication from the state that has that restriction? I'm bringing that up because Sandpoint Park in front of Titusville Municipal Marina was under a deed of dedication and had certain restrictions, could never be sold, a lot of things couldn't be done with that property. It had to be a public municipal purpose.
I'm not sure.
We were able to use the shoreline component, the literal or the linear shoreline, as part of our computation for the manatee plan when we did the mooring field. So,
I'm not sure anybody in this room has actually put eyes on this lease. I honestly, I keep hearing about it, but no one in here.
No, there's only one way to find out. This is force the issue.
Right, exactly.
Okay, guys, we got to kind of wrap it up.
Okay, great. Well, thank you again. I appreciate it. We're excited about it. I don't know if you could see on the left, we looked at this for the city in 2015 or something. It didn't go anywhere. It sort of ended right there. But again, thank you. Appreciate it. And enjoy the rest of your weekend. Stay strong and safe.
Thank you, guys.
Great presentation.
Did you give me a copy of the presentation? If you don't have a copy, you'll email me a copy.
Well, we can send you a PDF of it.
Yeah.
Is that good?
Great.
thank you very much.
Good job, dude.
Do you get to keep that? That's
I'm gonna actually see if I can just keep it in my truck. Mount it to the hood.
Easy Marina. That's kind of like your boat on the very end, isn't it?
Everybody had 6 original.
Bigger than that, but yeah.
So you are the last. If you can, get me a copy of your presentation. Yeah, but no, like a flash drive or a PDF, you can just email it.
I'll just leave you the thumb drive.
If you want back to this meeting of the presentations will end at the conclusion of your presentation. There will be a meeting that will reconvene immediately after.
I suppose those are boat sizes.
That's open to the public. That's the.
I suppose those are boat sizes, 28 foot, 16 foot.
That would make sense, yeah.
36.
What they want to do, but, so you can hang around and see what it's I'll have, about time to start, I'll have everybody introduce themselves so you know who you're talking to. And then you guys make the introduction if you want. It's up to you. My name is Wayne Cartino, I'm with the city and the city manager. Not quite 10, 11, but.
So I'm gonna sit here and then, so you all are aware the mouse isn't working. It's the pad. I mean, I can, but ultimately we're just gonna hit next slide. Right, and it's your turn. Yeah, I can stand up there with it, but I'd rather just sit down. I think there's a good discussion. And then have one person in charge of the entire thing. I just need that. I just need that sheet. Okay. You guys ready? Yep. Sit down.
Yeah, you guys want to introduce yourselves? Sure.
I'm Jared Francis. I'm the city engineer.
Tanja McCoy, Development Services.
Walker Dawson, Stormwater Utility Manager.
Keith Capizzi, Mayor.
Tricia Draycott, CFO.
Okay. Thank you very much. Mind if I get started? And if you want to sit, I'll call you up. All right, good morning, Evaluation Committee, and congratulations on your new role, Mayor Capizzi.
Appreciate it.
My name's Dean Rosenquist, Chief Operating Officer of 8 Koi, resident of Cocoa Beach, 40 Yacht Haven Drive off of 4th Street South, and boat owner. Thank you for having us today. We appreciate your time. As a citizen, I was able to attend the commission meetings regarding this project and know to get it built, it will be a political fight. I intend to be in the trenches with you, Mayor, fighting for this. I'm deeply involved and passionate about this marina and support the team throughout the marina process. With me today is Inga Young, President of 8 Koi, Robert Sullivan, Vice President of Engineering, and Bill Lights, Director of Environmental Services at Zeb Cohen. I know we're standing in the way of lunch and the rest of the work you have to do, so let's get on with it. Inga, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to be here today. My name is Inga Young. I'm the founding owner of 8 Koi. My family originally came to in the Atlantic in 1970 when my father came to work for a company called Radiation, which later became Harris Corporation. My mother worked at Kennedy Space Center. Without telling you my age, I'll just say I'm an old native Brevard County Floridian. I founded 8 Koi on August 8, 2008, which is 888. We are a certified minority woman-owned small business located minutes away from Cocoa Beach. One of my first clients was a company called Cape Design Engineering. I'll also call them CDE. CDE was founded almost 25 years ago in 1997. After working together with the owners of CDE, they sold it to me in 2019 because we shared the same core values and philosophies. While we refer to 8 Koi and CDE as separate, rest assured, we are one locally owned and operated organization that can design, build, staff, and supply. Our core values are excellence, dependability, passion, and thoughtfulness. At 8 Koi, we pride ourselves on being thoughtful and doing things with a human touch. We see the bigger picture of satisfying the needs of competing priorities and finding common ground solutions. Simply put, 8 Koi is a best-in-class firm like no other. We produce efficient solutions like no other. And at this time, our COO, my longtime friend and your friendly Cocoa Beach neighbor, Dean Rosenquist, will take over.
Thank you, Inga. So our headquarters is near the Wawa on Wickham and Pineda. So we're just minutes away from Cocoa Beach, as Inga said. I mentioned the Wawa because that's unfortunately where I take my gas cans to get that ethanol-free gas. And we'll talk more about that later. As Inga mentioned, 8 Koi is a local women-owned small business established in 2008. We are a certified minority business enterprise as defined by the Florida Small and Minority Business Act that provides multidiscipline engineering and construction services. Together with our wholly owned subsidiary, Cape Design Engineering, we bring comprehensive mechanical, electrical, plumbing, MEP, structural engineering, and construction management expertise under one roof. As a one-stop destination for design, build, and construction needs, 8 Koi has earned its reputation by delivering exceptional services within deadlines and budgets. This achievement resonates strongly across projects at the municipal, state, and federal levels. I want to highlight our 8 Koi U.S. Navy Trident Wharf replacement past performance. This was included in our proposal package. This design-build construction project required replacement of all mechanical piping, valves, and associated mechanical equipment on the Trident Wharf at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. It's a large wharf, being 1,220 feet long and 68 feet wide with a 120-ton rail crane as well. The purpose of this wharf is to support the U.S. Navy submarines and larger vessels. 8 Koi was a prime contractor and project manager. Engineering was completed by our design engineering division, CDE. This project was awarded in 2017 and completed in October 2019. Total cost of the project was just over $4.7 million. Our contractor performance assessment report, CPARS, was evaluated as very good in all categories: quality, schedule, cost control, management, small business subcontracting, and regulatory compliance. We've mentioned Cape Design Engineering, CDE, multiple times already, but I wanted to speak a little more about CDE. CDE was incorporated in 1997 by a group of professional engineering and contract management experts. CDE has independently performed over 2,800 designs with a construction value in well more than $800 million. 8 Koi acquired our subsidiary company CDE in March of 2019. With the addition of CDE, 8 Koi is one of Florida's premier engineering, construction, and design build companies. All right, I want to highlight this past performance in particular. This is the Patrick Space Force Base Marina. At the time, it was the Air Force Base. This project CDE completed, but we didn't include it in our proposal. We completed this project in 2013. We demolished 116 boat slips and design-built 110 new boat slips of various sizes.
The project included all required surveys, permitting, power, water, cable TV, and lighting. This was a $2.1 million project. Our ratings for performance range from exceptional, which is structural, electrical, surveying, mapping, and geospatial information services, to very good, environmental and geotechnical. From our experience, we understand environmental permitting is the most critical item. We understand the importance of soil strata and piling determinations. We understand proper uniform live loading on the docks and piers, and we understand proper wind loads on the docks, piers, and boats, and also the effects of wind shielding. Sorry about that. All right. I'd like to let Bill Lights from Zev Cohen come up and say a few words.
Hello, I'm Bill Lights. I'm the Director of Environmental Services at Zev Cohen & Associates. We were founded in 1977, about the time when I was in junior high and early high school. I spent a lot of time on the water in Titusville, where I grew up, fishing from the Mosquito Lagoon all the way down to Sharps. Now I'm up in Zev Cohen Associates up in Ormond Beach, and we do a lot of work from New Smyrna, Edgewater, all the way up to Flagler County. In 1977, when Zev Cohen and Associates was created, that's just when the state of Florida was starting to regulate stormwater discharge and environmental, ecological.
Can you all hear them okay? We're competing against the yoga class.
I actually don't. I'm so interested in what you had to say. I didn't even realize that they were making noise.
That's great. So, like Inga, I came here in 1964. My dad worked at the Space Center on the Apollo missions and the Trident and the shuttle. He was an ordnance engineer, so I got a lot of time spent in the natural environment. That's really where I like to be, in Titusville. So we do a lot of planning, landscape architecture, civil design, permitting, environmental services, construction administration for cities and counties and private developers. We work for Volusia County, Flagler County, Brevard County, cities like DeLand, Edgewater, New Smyrna Beach, Ormond Beach, and Daytona. When we get to one of the slides on the options, the civil will be important because we know how to design civil stormwater treatment for impaired water bodies and TMDLs, which I assume we have here. The grant opportunities. There you go. We've looked into some grant opportunities for the project. We have done and acquired grants before on projects. We, about 5 years ago, got a grant for a day dock at the city of Ormond Beach. That paid for about 20% of the design and construction of the day dock, and we did all the civil and permitting for it. We also have received grants from SISMA for Volusia County Coastal Department to remove exotics and invasive species at Smyrna Dunes Park, and have also helped the city of Ormond Beach get grants for Halifax River grant process for the removal of invasive and exotics. I'll talk a little bit about the three projects we've got. We've done 3 marina projects in the past 5 years. One of them has gone all the way to construction. One of them has gone through permitting but hasn't been constructed, and the other one, the big one, we're working on now for design and permitting. This was the Riverwalk Marina in New Smyrna Beach. It was a condominium, and it was on a very, very tight site, kind of like I think we have out here. There was no saltwater wetland mitigation available, banks available at the time, so we had to do an on-site wetland mitigation plan where we enhanced the perimeter of the site, the mangroves, and we planted some upland restoration areas and had some green shorelines. We've been monitoring and maintaining that for 5 years. It was in phases, so we're still doing that, and it's successful. On the marina, when we got started, it was designed for 104 slips. We did a benthic resource survey where we looked underwater to see if there were any benthic resources, and there were some oysters along the shoreline. We also had bathymetric survey, and the surveyors found a route to the intercoastal waterway, which is important for marina permitting. When we designed the marina, we designed it so that the shallower draft boats were towards the shore. In fact, right along where the oysters were, we had non-motorized, but then outside we had bigger boats, and then outside of that we had the biggest boats where they had the deepest draft. I think we had up to 44-foot boats on those outside slips. On the design on an access canal, we had to cut out about 6 slips because we couldn't have access. So it ended up being a 96-slip marina. We designed we facilitated the Manatee Protection Plan, MPP payments to the county, designed a marina management plan and the signage plan, and then had to do water quality monitoring while they were driving the piles. And that was a year-long process, so we had to work really closely with the contractor to know when he was going to be out there so that he could maintain his water quality certification. Finally, we had to modify the permit halfway through because people wanted boat lifts, and so we modified the Army Corps of Engineers and the St. John's River Water Management District, ERP, to allow the boat lifts. And this one is now complete. Another one, this is a smaller one, but it's for a condo. It's down in South Daytona, and it was for a 37-slip marina. There was a lot of debris. You can see in the picture the other boat docks and slips were out there, and they were all degraded. That's me. I love being in the water. So we actually go in and we do benthic resource surveys and look underwater in the entire area where the marina is going to be. Did not have any benthic resources on this one. Also did bathymetric surveys to get the depths and find out a path to the intercoastal waterway, and did an on-site mitigation plan. That's what's down there, where we're going to do a living shoreline to mitigate for the mangrove impacts. We got a sovereign and submerged lands lease, did the manatee protection plan, and this one's just shelf ready, waiting to be built. Finally, we have a large one in South Daytona also. We did a feasibility study about 4 years ago on it, where the client wanted 200 slips in the water and then 200 dry stack storage. We did talk to the city, and it was available. They had enough in their manatee protection plan to give to this client, but he walked, didn't want to do it. And now we're doing it for a condo owner, and we're in design right now. We've done our benthic resource survey and our bathymetric survey and path to the intercoastal, and we're working with a large contractor who builds marinas to do floating concrete piers, 8 feet wide, 170 slips, with a restaurant out over the water, fueling station over the water, and also restrooms over the water. So that's a fun one to do with them. We're in the middle of permitting on this one now. So I think that's it. Back to Dean.
All right. Thanks, Bill. Our dedicated project team, key individuals, are armed with a wealth of experience, and we're poised to turn visions into reality. The project will be led by Matt Charnberry, who is a degreed civil engineer with decades of construction experience. Unfortunately, Matt had a scheduling conflict today and couldn't join us. Rob Sullivan is supporting the structural elements, and as I mentioned, Bill Lights is supporting both environmental and civil. Here's our org chart. This identifies all the personnel who will partner with the City of Cocoa Beach on this marina project. Note, we want to clearly show to our in our org chart that 8 Koi is not a pass-through company. Our structural, mechanical, electrical engineers all work for 8 Koi. We have Zev Cohen and Land and Sea on our team as they bring civil, environmental, and surveying expertise to the project. This next section, we want to discuss the reasoning behind the location chosen and the different design concepts we propose for this project. Design alternative options are most likely the biggest way that we can help the city of Cocoa Beach control costs and save money on this project. If our engineering team sees a potential option to use an advanced product technology or alternative method of construction, we will thoroughly explore it and present it to the city. Okay, the location chosen and as a replica on the board there in front of you, Mayor, is we chose that based on the fact we're trying to strike a balance between mitigating the future muck capping project and its effects, yet optimizing boat slip capacity. We believe our phase concept and design will minimize the potential political pushback that the marina project will receive from commissioners, other vocal Cocoa Beach citizens and groups, environmental, eco-tourist companies, golfers, etc. Our conceptual alternatives are designed to ensure minimal disruption to the mangrove trees while effectively eradicating invasive Brazilian pepper that are currently choking out the mangroves in the area. I don't know if you've been down there, but there's a lot of Brazilian peppers. All of our concepts will have minimal impact to the existing kayak launch areas and dock. The location provides substantial space for diverse dock construction and layout possibilities, which can easily accommodate vessels up to 40 feet. Situated to the northeast of the Country Club, this location stands as a truly central point within Cocoa Beach and will leverage existing facilities like the 19th hole restaurant and the swimming pool. Or the aquatic center, sorry. I want you to know that we've been tweaking our concepts since we submitted the proposal to include modifying our design to take this phased approach. Rob Sullivan will discuss our concept options. Rob. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. So we kind of phased this, as the model indicates, into the north-south channel because we wanted to have the least environmental impact as we possibly can. So a little bit about myself. I'm the Vice President of CDE. I'm a resident just down A1A at South Patrick Shores, just south of Patrick Space Force Base. I'm a diver, I'm a surfer, and lifelong surfer, lifelong diver, and a boat owner, and here's my Nowie card from 1974. So we know and understand boats, and I've been around them all my life. My wife lived on her boat for 15 years. We owned it for 18. That was a 65-foot CT, about a 36-ton displacement. If you ever tried to dock a boat, large boats are harder to dock than small boats, and so we get to understand marinas and the marina's layout and how you get in and out of boat. How you get in and out of a marina is just as important as having a marina. So the concept has 3 options that we can build upon themselves as scalable. And option 1 has 34 slips. This is the least cost intensive. So it's 36 slips. All boats have boat lifts. 34, I'm sorry. 8-foot walkways, 3-foot fingers, and that's from experience of lifetime being in marinas. Single outlet, power, and water. There is no boat ramp, there's no fuel, there's no parking, there's no sanitary, and the design complexity is moderate. Option 2 has 66 slips, a combination of wet and dry and lifts. The lifts are in white and the wet slips are in dark. Again, same layout. We're basically just adding the pilings onto the west side of the dock so that you can have the same number of single outlet power and water. No boat ramp, no fuel, no parking, no sanitary facilities. And again, the design complexity is moderate. Option 3 is a higher end. It has 61 slips with a combination of wet and dry and lift slips. And as you can see, the wets are in the dark and the lifts are in the white. But instead of a single ramp going out, we have included a boat ramp. And the boat ramp also will include parking for trailers and parking. Again, the same single outlet power and water, the same, and on the very right side, the south side, there's a T-dock that can either be used to house a large vessel, a 40-foot size vessel, or it can be used as a day tripper when people are coming to visit the 19th hole or the aquatic center. So, Dean, let's move on. So let's dive into option 1. Option 1 has ample room for a 40-foot boat maneuverability. We checked, and I kayaked out here, so that these distances are feasible. I'm a 22-foot Mako owner, so I can drive in this and I know how to dock in this area. So one of the options, one of the main design features here is we know that there are kayakers and we know that there are kayak vendors, and this marina does not impact them at all. So we have the same 8-foot dock width that's designed so dock caddies are easily maneuverable on that. You can have two-way walkways on the docks as well. All right, next. So expanding on option 1 is option 2, where we just, instead of the lifts on the east side, we have wet slips on this west side. So the large vessel dock at the very south end is accommodating to approximately a 40-foot boat. And if that is not rented out, then that again can be day trippers who want to come and partake in the city's assets of the 19th hole, the pavilion, or the swimming pool, aquatic center. Now the orientation of the north and south dock is the same. Should this option be elected in the future, it would be minimal to expand it so that the two finger docks can go out with the boat ramp in between. So let's say you wanted to face this year 5 or year 10, you could pick one of the options or select any other options that are interspaced with this. You can put a fuel dock in option 1. You can, fuel storage in option 1. You could add a parking lot in option 1 or 2. So these are all interchangeable where the design does not get impacted significantly. So if you wish to phase the construction, you need to phase the financing of this, that's all achievable. Yes. So our best recommendation is option design 2. It's the least intrusive, maximizes the most amount of boat lifts, does not impact any additional hardscape for parking lot. It can support one 40-foot vessel at the very south end, and the uniform design increases the construction feasibility, and it makes it a lot more efficient. There are permitting advantages because we're offset from the mangroves, and we have the minimal ecological impact. Okay. I'll turn it back over to Dean.
Thanks, Rob. We did a local marina comparison to drive our market survey. For all options, we assumed 80% capacity and an average boat length of 22 feet with an average lease rate of $23 per foot. I think that's very reasonable based on what the other marinas locally are charging. So option 1, that would be 34 slips, all boat lifts, No ramp, no fuel, no parking, as Rob said. Potential revenue for this is $13,358 a month, or $160,296 annually. Option 2, again, what we recommended, 66 slips, combo boat lifts and wet. No boat ramp, no fuel, no parking. Potential revenue is $26,717 per month, or $320,604 annually. Option 3, 61 slips, combo boat lifts and wet. Additional revenue ideas such as maybe a boat ramp launch fee, parking fees. The fuel option, personally, I would pay, and a lot of my neighbors would pay, $1 premium to be able to stop in and get some fuel versus driving to Wawa or driving down to Harbor Town to fill up your gas. So with that, we believe the potential revenue would be $24,693 per month, or $296,316 annually, plus fuel sales and any additional fees. Okay, so in summary, I want to highlight again our experience. 8Koi alone brings over 15 years of direct experience working with federal entities like NASA, Navy, Air Force. Over the years, 8Koi and its wholly owned subsidiary, CDE, have performed more than $800 million worth of engineering construction projects throughout the U.S. We believe this is a testament to the quality of our work. Our staffing, our team is staffed with qualified individuals and credentials that not only meet but exceed the requirements of the solicitation. Our involvement, 8Koi always puts the client first. We desire the involvement of the end users and stakeholders to ensure that the client is getting exactly what they desire, with no doubts or surprises along the way. City of Cocoa Beach should expect nothing less. Our repeat clients. All business owners will state that there is no better endorsement than repeat business. At 8Koi, 90% of our engineering and construction business is comprised of repeat returning clients. It is common for 8Koi to receive high praise from our clients for our tenacity in meeting their needs. We are certain that our clients will further prove that if interviewed. We are client service oriented. Our customer service model firmly believes in the principle of giving each customer our very best in designs, but also in our interactions. At 8Koi, we provide the client with a human experience. We listen to our clients, we help them succeed. It is our honest observation that most companies, especially larger ones, hear what the client wants and simply design it with minimal interaction. That is not how 8Koi operates. We prefer to communicate openly with our clients, keep them engaged through the entire design process. That way you, the client, get exactly what you need without any surprises. Our location, we are a local company. 8Koi will perform and execute this contract at our Melbourne, Florida headquarters, just minutes away from downtown Cocoa Beach and the proposed marina. As I said, I'm a Cocoa Beach resident and I could be on the proposed site within 10 minutes, assuming the kids aren't going to Roosevelt or Cocoa Beach High. Hopefully our brief answered your questions you may have had going into this presentation. As we stated, we're boat owners. Picture on the left is a picture of my family. Middle is Rob Sullivan from his sailboating days, and a picture of an employee on the right is he and his family at Bird Island. We're hopeful to be your partner on this project. Regardless of who you choose, Mayor, I want you to know that I will be a local advocate for the marina. Thank you. We're prepared to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. I think that was a very, very thoughtful presentation. You hit a lot of key questions that we had. I love that you guys are local. Definitely that, to me, is very important because you guys understand the area. I, too, am a avid boater, 200-ton master, so I understand what it would take to maneuver around some of this stuff. So,
Mayor, you're that boat on the end might look familiar on the mock-up.
Oh, yeah, is that me? Yes, thank you. So, I love the presentation. I love what you've got to offer. I would like to see it more in the bigger area where the capping would be. I know that is probably a concern for you guys as far as the feasibility of it and why you presented it in here. My grand vision, obviously, I think it would be way off in the future, but if I could have what I would really love to have, and we had the money for it, it would be something like a smaller city walk on the water on the east side on the golf course with something like this, but projecting out to where we could ultimately have around 100 slips, maybe start off with around 50. Fuel, I think in order for this marina to be profitable, I think we really need to start off with amenities that would draw people to the location and to the area. So I think, like you said, fuel and bathrooms and laundry and all that would be something. I'd like to incorporate the golf course with it being a yacht club with 27-hole golf course, Olympic-sized swimming pool, and tennis, so that we can actually market it as a real destination. With that being said, I would like to see bigger than an average of, it looks like about 30-foot to 28-foot vessels. But I understand that the market in this area is probably closer to 24 to 35-foot vessels. So, and we cannot really support anything larger than 60. 50 is really the biggest. My boat is 58 overall. So I've been in here and I understand the constraints. But I think you guys did great with the. I like the fact that you offered the potential profits. I thought that was great. And I also think if we could market it to some larger vessels, then we could also boost those profits, obviously, especially with using some of them for rental docks or some of them for transient, some of them for long-term. Transient, as you know, you can get at least $3 a square, or $3 a linear foot overnight. So for me, I'm going to be paying at least $150 plus electric and other fees. I'm spending $200 to $250 a night to stay. So it's another option, is if we can make this something that is desirable. Another reason why in here too is my concern is because I want people to drive by and it creates interest, right? So being in here, you might not even notice it, which is great for maybe the residents that don't want something like this. So I understand everything.
Find that balance.
The balance of everything. So I just want to share with you my thoughts on the project. I like it. In case we do call you back for a secondary thing.
Okay.
Quick question. So the cost benefit analysis of should the city not do a marina? Can you walk us through that process and who would be involved in that process?
Yeah, so we would, if we were selected, we would sit down with all of you and really put the pen to the paper. But we ran the construction estimates on these options. We believe with option 2, which was recommended, the return to pay it back, the return on investment would really be about 7.5 years.
Does that include operational costs, including staffing and maintenance of the facility?
No, that's just construction.
Okay. All right.
But that doesn't include any grants you might get.
Right. It does not include any potential grants that could offset that.
What, I mean, I wouldn't obviously hold you to it, but what were you thinking estimated cost for a number 2 scenario would be?
Sure, about 2.2 million.
Okay.
And they run from 2 million to 3 million. So
okay.
Option 2
And
is 2.2.
that doesn't include pump out but it does have shore power, correct?
Correct. On option 3, it would include power.
Yeah. Say that again?
They all have power at this single outlet, so I'll let the engineer talk about it.
Single pedestal.
You would need,
Various marinas.
you'd need 30 amp and 50 amp.
This is just 110.
So yeah, that, we're single out 110.
So Mayor, my wife lived on her boat for 15 years.
Yeah.
From Charleston to Virginia Beach to Bermuda and the Bahamas and Miami. So yeah, we understand the 30 amp twist lock power requirements. We understand phone. We understand a bunch of stuff. So I mean, I'm a diver. The Bethnet surveys are going to be done in-house. We understand all of the things that you want for the larger boats.
Yeah.
Because, 36 tons displacement boat.
I mean, the long-term rentals are our bread and butter, and our transients are icing on the cake. So, but yeah, if we didn't offer the long-term power, then you wouldn't have maybe an opportunity for liveaboards or something like that.
We could. It's all and again, so this was just our first
Yeah.
concept for a proposal side. Do we have the know-how to do that? Yes, we do. Do we have the experience in actually doing it? Yes, we do. Actually, it's right down the road. And we're running at about 98% occupancy right now.
Bringing me to my next question. Are you guys familiar with dry dock systems or?
Yes.
Okay. Because I think another thing to consider is with the Blue Points Marina shutting down, and obviously there's talk of maybe even more shutting down out there as far as marinas. We're gonna have a huge opportunity to grab dry dock revenue as well. So just want to make sure you guys were.
Yeah, the lift docks were priced into our construction.
Yeah. What do you mean dry?
I'm trying dry storage. Yes.
Yes. Oh, dry storage.
Yes. Yes, but I think considering how many boats that you can put in a smaller footprint and compared to what is going to be necessary in the future, I think that it's very important to incorporate that into this builder idea.
And we can evaluate any kind of plans. This is just one that
Yes.
we were thinking of. So for the feasibility, you guys will tell us what you want, and we can check its feasibility.
Obviously.
We read into the not impacting the capping project as a primary focus.
Okay.
And this has zero impact to the capping project, zero impact to the existing kayakers and the tour boat operators that are in the area. So, and that's what our zero impact is what we were striving for.
And I think you nailed that. I think you did that. So thank you.
Yeah, and that's huge. I think that's one of my biggest concerns is the capping project. I mean, we are getting $36 million and other people's money. And so if there are adverse effects, we want to be aware of that. So, that was big for me.
Yeah, we know that permitting process is underway and it's going to probably be about 2 years. So we don't want to impact that.
But it could take 2 years for the capping project, and then we're doing our thing, and then we're done, and then put it in after.
Yeah, the permitting process can be independent of each other, but they can be compatible.
I do agree that bigger boats would be nice to have, and more of them.
Yeah.
And deeper channels going out to the
Deeper
river.
channels, yeah. Like I said, 5-foot channels, 60 foot is absolute max, and 50 is really pushing it. So.
Can you get your boat to this channel?
Oh, easy, yeah. I mean, I honestly don't even follow the channels in the river, but that's because I know all of them. So I know the river like the back of my hand.
Yeah, the depths in there, I already checked, and that's why we put it out to the location where it is in. So easy to get a scarab in there, easy to get a contender in there. You can get up to 30, 35 feet.
I mean, even you could potentially do 3 longer slips or finger piers here, where you could do actually 5 on the ends on each end if you had to do something like that.
The other thing too is day trippers. People wanted to go out to Bird Island, they want to come in here and then clean themselves up, come in after Bird Island, go jump in the pool, have a good time. Grab some lunch at.
Exactly. I want to incorporate it all so that we can make money with all of our assets.
Right.
So.
And we were very sensitive to the RFP budget.
Yeah, thank you.
So we love your idea of something more like a river walk, but we knew that that was not within the budget that was outlined to us.
That's in the future, once we see how much this makes. But like I said, if I could have my grand plan, I would love to bring all that in. But I like the fact that the budget that you guys are proposing too is, I think, definitely within our budget. So I like that.
Yes, we did try to constrain the size of it to be able to get through the RFQ budget in the design and permitting, because if you have such a bigger marina, there's no way you can do design and permitting for that budget.
Yeah.
So we shrunk it down.
And we hope that you like our 3D model so that if you do have other ideas in the future, we can just add to the model and play around.
I love it. I think you guys put a lot of work into this, and I'm really thankful for it.
I know one thing, speaking of budget, you guys mentioned fine grants and DEP and that sort of thing. Do you have any experience with the boating infrastructure grants?
The one that, I'm not sure which grant it was for the Ormond Beach Day Dock.
I think it's I heard someone say Big P, Boating Infrastructure Grant Program, I think it was. And I'm not a boater. I'll put that out there. I haven't built one of these before or been involved with it, so I'm still learning as I go. But didn't know if you had any experience with that. I've heard.
Definitely being able to secure grants would be a very huge benefit. That's something that we've heard a lot of other people saying that grants are something they're really proficient at. So hopefully you guys are on the same level. But there's grants for the fine grant and the other grants and this and that where, I mean, supposedly I guess they're saying that you can get almost this whole thing paid for if we run the right avenues.
Yes.
So.
Then your ROI is much shorter.
Right.
Yeah. Or paid for.
Any more questions? You guys good?
Yep.
Get me a copy of that. Appreciate it.
I need to break your computer.
Thank you for coming in. That was very good. Very informative.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
So that formally ends